Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my channel? Thank you so much. In my second year studying abroad, Alaric ended his world tour with his first love, Cecilia. He ostentatiously brought his first love to the company's annual meeting. Where's Imelda? Isn't she still tirelessly guarding the company for me? Send someone to tell her I'm back and marrying her and to start preparing the wedding. Everyone present exchanged bewildered glances. The agent I had specially hired before going abroad hesitated for a long time before speaking. Imelda hasn't returned for 2 years. Since the old madam passed away, she's been abroad. The usually aloof Alaric clenched his fists tighter and tighter upon hearing this. Do you know what happens to those who deceive me on her behalf? Not long after, I ran into Alaric and Cecilia at a school party. He arrogantly accused, I told you once, Cecilia has had her fun. I'll come back and marry you. I never expected you to stalk me. Stay far away from me. Later, someone took Alaric to the old madam's grave, but he went mad, begging me to marry him. Alaric's words made me laugh uncontrollably. He must have been traveling with Cecilia all these past 2 years. Otherwise, how would he not know that I had long since left? Before I could say a word, Alaric recalled what happened at the annual meeting. Imelda didn't? Someone lied to me at the annual meeting, saying you had already gone abroad to study. So why are you shamelessly showing up in front of me now? I chuckled lightly and said irritably, Alaric, don't you know where you are right now? Alaric was momentarily stunned before realizing he was at one of the top 3 art academies in the world. Before he could say anything, the host on stage announced the start of the gala. Then the name L Group was called out. It turned out this event was sponsored by L Group. As soon as the host finished speaking, the surrounding students began to murmur. They've got a real-life ship going on. When will I ever meet a man like Alaric? I heard they're each other's first loves. A man as devoted as Alaric is as rare as finding a needle in a haystack. Listening to the waves of envy around me, a sardonic smile curled at the corner of my mouth. Alaric was indeed devoted and long-lasting in his affections. 3 years ago, under the urging of Alaric's mother, Alaric reluctantly agreed to marry me. But 2 days before the wedding, Cecilia came to Alaric with a diagnosis of depression. I still remember the heartbroken expression on Alaric's face when he saw that diagnosis. To help Cecilia recover from her depression, he left a letter and disappeared the day before the wedding. In the letter, Alaric said he would come back to marry me once Cecilia's depression was cured. Foolishly, I waited for a whole year. What I received instead was a video from Cecilia showing her and Alaric's wedding abroad. When I heard Alaric say the words, I do, I went mad and smashed my phone on the ground. In my emotional frenzy, I didn't notice Alaric's mother standing behind me, her face pale. It wasn't until the butlers panicked. Voice sounded from behind me. That was when I realized Alaric's mother had been there all along. I hurriedly took her to the hospital. During the emergency treatment, I kept calling Alaric, but all I got in response was the same mechanical female voice over and over again. With no other option, I dialed Cecilia's number. I don't know how long it took, but she finally answered in a leisurely tone. The moment Cecilia heard what I said, she burst out laughing. Imelda, if you want to trick Alaric into coming back, you should come up with a better excuse. No sooner had Cecilia finished speaking than Alaric's voice came through the receiver, asking questions. Without a second thought, Cecilia said it was a prank call. After that, no matter how many times I tried calling her, she didn't pick up. The butler beside me anxiously contacted other family members, but by the time they arrived at the hospital, Alaric's mother was already on the brink of death. She grasped my hand weakly and said, Imelda, you should go. Don't wait any longer. Not long after she said this, Alaric's mother passed away. I handled her funeral as her adopted daughter. The day after Alaric's mother was buried, I left the city. The noise at the party pulled me out of my memories. Watching the two on stage, I couldn't help but wonder how Alaric would feel if he knew he had unintentionally angered his mother to death. If Alaric knew that Cecilia had kept him from seeing his mother one last time, would their relationship still be this good? I didn't dwell on running into Alaric at the party. To me now, he was nothing more than a fly from the past. But I hadn't expected that 3 days after the party, I would see Cecilia and Alaric together in the classroom. During class, when Cecilia saw me enter, she walked over with a bright smile. "Imelda, long time no see." I raised an eyebrow, but said nothing, walking straight past her. Alaric looked at me with displeasure. "Imelda, what's your attitude now? I didn't even hold it against you for ignoring the L group and going abroad to study. Our family is supporting you so that you can work for me." I heard the disdain behind his words, but it didn't make me as upset as before. I even found him somewhat annoying. In the past, I would have been happy whenever Alaric spoke to me. Seeing me silent, Alaric assumed I was drowning in guilt. He shamelessly said, "I know you're good at studying. When you have big assignments in the future, help Cecilia out." Before I could ask what he meant, the counselor pushed the door open. From what the counselor said next, I understood Alaric's words. Cecilia had become a transfer student in our class. This didn't mean much to me. In fact, I felt a bit irritated about the days to come after their arrival. After class, Cecilia took the initiative to come up to me, feigning enthusiasm as she asked, "Imelda, want to grab a meal together? Alaric postponed your wedding because of my illness, and I've felt guilty about it ever since. Today, I want to take this chance to treat you to a meal." Saying this, Cecilia looked at me with a triumphant gleam in her eyes. I had always known that Cecilia's so-called depression was a lie. I had told Alaric about this many times before, but every time Alaric would scold me. "Not everyone is willing to stoop to any means to achieve their goals like you." Alaric had always believed that our engagement was something I had secured through improper means. Seeing that I remained silent, Cecilia's eyes gradually reddened. She looked back at Alaric with a face full of grievance. Alaric immediately glared at me with displeasure. "Cecilia is talking to you. Why are you spacing out? She already humbled herself to apologize to you, Imelda. What more do you want?" I listened to Alaric's defense, a sarcastic smile curling at the corner of my mouth. In his eyes, whatever Cecilia said was always right. I leisurely tidied up the things on the table, my gaze calm as I looked at the two people in front of me. "I'm not interested in having dinner with you." After saying that, I tried to turn and leave, but Cecilia grabbed my hand from behind. I looked at her in confusion. "Is there something else you want?" Tears welled up in Cecilia's eyes. "Imelda, are you still mad at me? I'll give Alaric back to you. Just please don't look at me like that." "Okay." I frowned at Cecilia's overly dramatic face and shook her hand off forcefully. "If you like it, just take it. I don't care." Cecilia looked at me in surprise, as if trying to figure out whether I was telling the truth. Nearby, Alaric, seeing Cecilia's tears, immediately shielded her behind him. Alaric bumped into me, and I lost my balance, falling to the ground. "Imelda, why have you become so two-faced? Cecilia is a patient. Is it really worth quibbling with a patient?" When he said this, Alaric's eyes were full of reproach and dissatisfaction, as if I had committed a grave offense. In the past, whenever Alaric looked at me like that, I would do everything I could to apologize. But now I just stood up from the ground, glanced at the scraped palm, and looked at Alaric expressionlessly. "If you're worried I'll hurt the one you care about, then keep her far away from me." Alaric heard my words, and the displeasure in his eyes was about to overflow. "You think I want to see you? It was Cecilia who said she wanted to apologize to you. Otherwise, just seeing you makes me feel sick." Listening to his blunt disdain, I unconsciously raised my hand to touch the spot over my heart. Once I was sure I wouldn't feel sad over Alaric anymore, I couldn't help but laugh. Alaric gave me a baffled look. After muttering "crazy," he grabbed Cecilia's hand and left the classroom. I looked down at the wound in my palm and then went back to the dorm to tend to it simply by myself. My roommate Harriet, who lives with me, curiously asked if I knew Alaric and the others. "Why don't you tell me their love story?" Seeing Harriet's curious and envious gaze, I cruelly told her, "Alaric is the scumbag you've been cursing for 2 years. I had become friends who shared everything." Sure enough, upon hearing my words, Harriet immediately widened her eyes. Then she started muttering curses beside me. In the end, she took my hand and comforted me, saying, "Imelda, my brother's coming to see me this weekend. I'll introduce you to him then." Harriet had said this more than 10 times, But every time of day before she was supposed to meet her brother, something unexpected would happen. This time, I didn't take it seriously either. Since Cecilia came to our class, Alaric has been accompanying her to class every day. On the third day, he even came to explain to me, Cecilia wants to experience college romance, so I'm just going to class with her. You can have someone else prepare the wedding. This is the last thing I'll do with her. I looked impatiently at Alaric, who was pretending to be considerate, and at Cecilia, standing behind him, her eyes full of unwillingness. You don't need to explain to me. I'm not interested, I said. Alaric wore an expression that said, I see right through you, Imelda. Don't keep pretending. I know you still care deeply about the wedding, but under those circumstances, I couldn't just ignore Cecilia. In Alaric's words, it seemed that if I pressed the issue of the wedding any further, I'd be in the wrong. If it had been me before, I probably would have been very hurt, but now I simply nodded calmly. Seeing that I wasn't as emotionally charged as before, Alaric was first taken aback, then looked at me with satisfaction. This is the kind of maturity our family's daughter-in-law should have. After those words, I suddenly realized that Alaric didn't truly like Cecilia. To him, Cecilia was just a pawn in his rebellion against his family's arrangements, and my abilities, along with my obedience to him, allowed him to comfortably do whatever he wanted. With that thought, my gaze toward Alaric was openly filled with disdain. Alaric didn't notice the change in my eyes. He continued talking about the future, as if to himself. Cecilia, standing behind Alaric, gradually changed her expression upon hearing him. I thought she would come to her senses after hearing those words. But unexpectedly, when Cecilia looked up at me, her eyes were full of resentment and malice. I furrowed my brows and locked eyes with her. Suddenly, I realized that my days ahead would probably be far from peaceful. Alaric spoke for a long time before noticing that I hadn't responded. Then he looked at me intently. Imelda, are you so happy that you're speechless? Upon hearing this, I shot him a glare, clearly annoyed. Suddenly, I noticed that since Alaric appeared, he hadn't mentioned anything about his mother. So I asked, Alaric, have you gone back to see your mom? Alaric's expression froze for a moment. Then he started to complain. When it comes to this, I just don't understand. Before I went to the company's annual party, people there told me my mom had passed away. I didn't believe it at all. It must be her way of forcing me to marry you. Imelda, go tell. My mom stopped joking about herself, seeing the look of disagreement all over Alaric's face. I realized he hadn't gone home to see her, and Cecilia hadn't mentioned that phone call to Alaric either. I looked at Cecilia behind Alaric. At that moment, a flicker of panic flashed in her eyes. Noticing my gaze, Cecilia's eyes reddened. She grabbed Alaric's hand behind him. Alaric, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I'm the reason you haven't seen your mother for so long. I don't deserve to live in this world. I watched Cecilia's clumsy act and couldn't help but laugh. But Alaric looked heartbroken as he pulled her into his arms and comforted her gently. Just then, Harriet walked in and saw Alaric with Cecilia. She couldn't help but make a disgusted face. Then she shouted loudly, Imelda, how did these two shameless lovers still have a nerve to show up here? Just seeing you makes me sick. Harriet's words darkened Alaric's expression. He said coldly, You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. Harriet clicked her tongue in disdain. You act all proper, but when your own mother was in trouble, you couldn't find anyone to marry some no-good woman and drive your own mother to death. You're the first one to do that. Harriet's words completely changed Alaric and Cecilia's faces. Alaric shoved Cecilia away, then grabbed my hand and asked coldly, What did she mean by that? I stared at him expressionlessly, then slowly said, The day you held your wedding with Cecilia 2 years ago, Alaric's mother passed away. She died of anger because of you. Alaric refused to believe my words. He let go of my hand, muttering repeatedly, That's impossible. How can my mom be in trouble? Impossible. But Alaric recalled what happened at the annual meeting that day and how he hadn't been able to reach Alaric's mother since he came back this time. He gradually panicked. Cecilia quickly stepped forward, taking Alaric's hand to comfort him. Alaric, this has to be false. Alaric's mother is so strong, and you're her son. If anything happened to her, how could no one have informed you? Cecilia's words were like a powerful shot to Aelric. He glared at me with uncontrollable rage. Before I could react, he raised his hand and slapped me hard. Imelda, my mom cared for you so much, and you actually cursed her to have an accident. I even felt a bit guilty toward you and wanted to make it up to you. I was knocked to the ground by Alaric's slap. Harriet quickly stepped forward and helped me up, just as Aelric was about to vent his anger on me again. Harriet shielded me behind her. I watched Harriet's back, my thoughts suddenly drifting back to that rainy day 7 years ago. That day, my drunken father had kicked me out of the house. He pointed his finger at my nose and cursed. You're just as worthless as your mother. If you can't come back with the money this time, I'll use you to pay off the debt. I glared at him defiantly. Seeing the look in my eyes, Dad raised his hand and slapped me hard across the face. Looking at me like that, I'll beat you to death right now. He grabbed a stick nearby and swung it at me. Just a second before the stick hit me, Alaric happened to pass by and suddenly appeared, shielding me behind him. He grabbed my dad's stick and pushed him to the ground. Bullying a girl? What kind of scum are you? Before my dad could say anything, Alaric's bodyguards had already arrived. My dad, who was always tough on the weak and weak on the tough, could only grumble as he walked away. Alaric took me back to his house. Casually, he said to his mother, Mom, aren't you supposed to be sponsoring underprivileged students? I think this girl looks pretty pitiful. Alaric's mother led me into the study. After we reached some agreements, she patted my shoulder and said, Leave the rest to me. You just focus on your studies. And so I ended up living at their house, becoming their adopted daughter. Although by then, Alaric was already deeply involved with Cecilia. That silhouette has remained in my heart ever since. Now, watching the furious Alaric behind Harriet, I finally understand we come from two different worlds. Saving me back then was just a casual favor for Alaric, but I trapped myself in that moment and couldn't break free. As for the debt of gratitude, over the years I've made quite a bit of money for the Al Group. What I owed has long been paid off. Before meeting Alaric this time, I held on to a sliver of hope, hoping he might remember the good I did. But after these past few days, I realized I no longer love him. I tugged at Harriet's sleeve, who was speaking in different directions. Harriet, let's go. Upon hearing this, Harriet stopped talking. She shot an innocent glare at Cecilia. After a scoff, she turned and pulled me away, but Alaric grabbed my hand. Apologize to Cecilia. I yanked my hand back hard, looking at him coldly. Alaric, if I were you, I'd call home right now and ask about your mother's situation instead of arguing with me over unnecessary things here. Alaric was momentarily stunned, then flared up angrily. I don't need you to teach me how to do things. Now I want you to apologize to Cecilia. I said nothing. Instead, I looked at Cecilia, who was beaming with pride. Suddenly, I pulled out my phone and called the Gu family steward right in front of him. Uncle Lee, how is Alaric's mother doing? When Alaric heard my words, his eyes were full of disdain. He snatched my phone and hung up. Imelda, don't think you can avoid apologizing just by calling Uncle Lee. Looking at the man I had loved for so many years, I suddenly smiled with a sense of release. I said, Alaric, I have already repaid your family's kindness. That slap just now also ended the feelings between us. Let it be. Hearing my words, Alaric seemed to hear a joke. Imelda, if you could really stop loving me so easily, I would have already burned incense to give thanks. Who doesn't know you cling to me stubbornly? Listening to Alaric's self-righteous tone, I began to feel pity for my past self, but I didn't want to argue. With Alaric anymore taking Harriet's hand, I turned and walked away. Just as Alaric was about to say something more, Cecilia said plaintively, Alaric, don't argue with Imelda anymore. It makes me feel guilty. Only then did Alaric reluctantly let it go. But he still said to me from behind, Imelda, since you say you're giving up, don't regret it. I pretended not to hear and walked away without looking back. Back in the dorm, Harriet quickly grabbed some ice to put on her face, cursing Alaric nonstop. Sitting beside me, she couldn't help but complain, Imelda, how blind are you? A man like that actually fancies you. You must really be starving. If it had been before, I would have definitely argued back at Harriet. but now I found myself unable to. After thinking it over, I ended up telling her about the first time I met Alaric. Harriet fell silent for a long time after hearing it. Just as I was about to say something, she suddenly raised her hand and hugged me. Imelda, you've worked hard. When Harriet said this, I was stunned. In all these years, no one had ever said something like that to me. When Elric's mother was alive, she cared for me deeply, but all of that was something I earned through my own efforts. In other words, I was useful to their family. The reason Alaric's mother pushed me to marry Alaric so early was simply because she feared I might have divided loyalties. Besides, what she wanted was for me to love Alaric with unwavering devotion. At the time, it wasn't that I couldn't see through it all. I was just willing. Looking back now, I think I was such a joke. After that day, Alaric became even more obedient to Cecilia, especially in front of me. I looked at the two of them deliberately sitting opposite me and felt utterly speechless. But Cecilia seemed quite satisfied with the way things were now. She turned back and shook the bracelet on her wrist at me. Her tone was filled with unmistakable pride. Imelda, do you like this bracelet? Alaric gave it to me. I kept telling him not to buy me such expensive things, but he just wouldn't listen. Recently, the things he's given me have almost filled up my entire room. I hadn't planned to respond to Cecilia, but then I suddenly remembered something, so I looked over at Alaric, who had been sitting quietly on the side the whole time. Alaric, the jade bracelet your mother gave me before, I left it at your place. You should find some time to go back and see it. The smile on Cecilia's face instantly froze. My words, although what I meant by that sentence was different from what she thought, still pleased me to see her discomfort. Alaric also assumed I had deliberately brought up the jade bracelet his mother gave me at this moment, just to show off. His eyes were full of pride as he looked at me. Imelda, you women are all the same, always saying one thing and meaning another. Don't worry, everything I give to Cecilia will have a share for you, as long as you behave. I ignored Alaric's words and kept my head down, reading. The moment I looked, I didn't notice the flash of malice on Cecilia's face beside me that afternoon. Rumors started spreading at school that I had come between Alaric and Cecilia. At first, I didn't take it seriously, but by the next day, I noticed classmates pointing fingers and whispering about me on the street. When I returned to class, Alaric was gently comforting a crying Cecilia. Seeing me enter, Cecilia quickly stood up and moved away from Alaric. Then she looked at me with innocent eyes. Imelda, I didn't start those rumors. I'm not going to cling to Alaric anymore. So, can you please stop? Cecilia's hesitant words made Alaric think I had done something to her. He angrily yanked me in front of Cecilia. Apologize. I frowned at Alaric, who was acting without reason. What are you talking about? I have no interest in playing along with your little drama. With that, I was about to leave, but Alaric blocked my way, his voice cold. Don't think you can leave without apologizing. I glanced at Cecilia, hiding behind Alaric. Suddenly, I realized this was all another one of Cecilia's schemes. Only now, I was no longer willing to yield to Alaric. I pushed Alaric hard, my tone full of impatience. Alaric, it's your problem if you're being played like a fool. Don't drag me into this. From start to finish, I'm the real victim of these rumors. Alaric's face darkened even more after hearing my words. Step by step, he cornered me against the wall. Imelda, don't force me to do something to you. I looked at Alaric's furious face, thinking desperately about how to get away. A tall man suddenly shielded me behind him. Isn't this Alaric, the one who didn't even attend his own mother's funeral? The sudden words from the man left Alaric stunned for a moment. After recovering, Alaric grabbed the man's collar. What did you just say? When did my mother have a funeral? The man calmly pushed him away, his eyes full of sarcasm. 2 years ago. I didn't see you at your mother's funeral. Could it be that you were too heartbroken to attend? Alaric was completely enraged by the man's sarcastic words. What nonsense are you spouting? My mother is alive and well. How could there have been a funeral? Then he saw me shielded behind a man. As if suddenly realizing something, he said, You must be in cahoots with Imelda. She must have sent you to deceive me. The man in front of me looked at Alaric as if he were looking at a fool. Is it true or not? Why don't you just call and ask? After hesitating for a moment, Alaric took out his phone and called Uncle Lee. The call connected, and before he could say a word, Uncle Lee's choked voice came through the receiver. "Young master, you finally called. Why didn't you come back when the madam passed away?" Uncle Lee's words drained all the color from Alaric's face. His voice trembled as he asked, "Uncle Lee, what did you say? Your mother?" The voice on the other end immediately changed to Alaric's eldest uncle. "You wretch! You finally remember your mother. Your mother died of anger because of you." Alaric's phone instantly. The next second, Alaric stormed out of the classroom. Cecilia, left behind, wore a face full of panic. I slowly walked up to her, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Cecilia, what do you think would happen if Alaric found out it was you who kept him from seeing his mother one last time?" Cecilia clearly recalled the day Alaric's mother was being saved, but she still stiffened her neck and said, "Don't talk nonsense. I never got any call. Don't try to drive a wedge between Alaric and me." A mocking smile curled at the corner of my mouth. "I hope the bond between you two is really as strong as you claim." With that, I turned to look at the man who had been standing protectively in front of me. Just as I was about to thank him, Harriet came running into the classroom. After pulling me around for a moment, she finally exhaled in relief. "I'm glad you're okay." Saying that, Harriet took my hand and led me over to the man. "Imelda, let me introduce you. This is my brother, Amon." I was momentarily stunned. I hadn't expected the person who just appeared to be Harriet's brother. Amon smiled at me. "Imelda, good to see you again." For a moment, I couldn't recall when I had met him before. Amon didn't seem to mind. "Let's go. I'll take you all to eat." After saying that, he walked ahead. On the way to the restaurant, I suddenly remembered Amon had mentioned attending Alaric's mother's funeral before. Maybe that was when he saw me. During the meal, I stood up and raised my glass to Amon. "Amon, thank you for your help earlier." Amon smiled at me and said, "It was nothing." Over the course of the meal, I learned that Harriet was the daughter of the richest man. I looked at her with some surprise. In the 2 years we spent together, I never once felt that Harriet had a temper. Perhaps this is the true upbringing of a wealthy family. After that day, Amon often came to school to pick Harriet up for meals, but Harriet found it boring to eat with just the two of them. She always brought me along. After spending time with Amon, I realized he was quite an interesting person. Making friends with someone like him would definitely be fun. As for Cecilia, she stopped coming to school after Alaric left. In Harriet's words, "She only came to school to make things difficult for you. Too bad she didn't realize you stopped caring about that dog of a man, Alaric, long ago." Hearing Harriet call Alaric a dog of a man made me laugh so hard I could barely stand. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the Gu family back home was extremely tense. After Alaric returned home, his uncle took him to his mother's grave. He sat there for a long time, long enough for the rain to start falling. As the raindrops soaked him, it seemed to awaken the pain deep inside him. Alaric knelt by the grave and cried for a long time. He came home in a daze. Alaric's uncle sat in the living room with a stern face. Seeing Alaric, he scolded him bitterly. "Alaric, you're such a character. Your mother died because of a woman, and you're still like this." His uncle's words made Alaric think of me. He said harshly, "Imelda must have said something to my mother. Otherwise, how could she have gotten sick? It's all her fault. I won't let her off." No sooner had Alaric finished speaking than his uncle slapped him across the face. "How dare you blame Imelda? If it weren't for her handling your mother's funeral, our family's reputation would have been completely ruined." Just as Alaric was about to say something, his uncle took out his phone, played a video, and tossed it to him. "See for yourself." On the screen was the wedding footage Cecilia had sent me earlier. At the end of the video, Cecilia proudly said, "Imelda, you lost with just one positive test result. Alaric abandoned you and held a wedding with me without hesitation. Even if Alaric's mother likes you, it doesn't change the fact that you can't beat me." At this point, Alaric recalled how I had told him many times before that Cecilia's depression was all an act. Before Alaric could process this, his uncle continued, "When your mother was in critical condition, Imelda called that woman. It was she who meddled and made sure you never saw your mother one last time." Alaric's uncle's words completely drove Alaric to lose his mind. That very night, Alaric sent people to bring Cecilia back. Seeing Alaric's expressionless face, Cecilia immediately panicked. She cried out to Alaric, "Alaric, your men scared me." Before Cecilia could finish, Alaric slapped her hard. "You're still pretending. You're the one who drove my mother to her death." Hearing Alaric's words, Cecilia wept bitterly, tears streaming down her face. Just as she was about to say that she had slandered her, Alaric had someone play the video. Cecilia's face turned completely pale, yet she still stiffly said, I just love you so much. I wanted Imelda to back off. Don't you understand me? I have depression. I can't." Before she could finish, Alaric kicked her to the ground. "At this point, you still want to use depression to fool me? I truly wish I could kill you." Cecilia was frightened by the cruelty in Alaric's eyes, her mouth opening and closing, but she couldn't utter a single word. A cruel smile curled at the corner of Alaric's lips. "Since you say you have depression, then I'll grant your wish." After saying this, Alaric sent someone to take Cecilia to a psychiatric hospital. Cecilia struggled desperately, shouting, "Alaric, you can't do this to me. What you're doing is illegal." Alaric threw her depression diagnosis report onto her. His voice was cold. "Here's your diagnosis. I'm only doing this for your own good." And with that, Alaric sent Cecilia into the psychiatric hospital. As Alaric sat helplessly on the sofa, Uncle Lee took out the jade bracelet I had left at home. "Alaric, this was left by Imelda." Alaric took the jade bracelet, murmuring to himself, "Imelda, you can only marry me." I had no idea what was happening at the Alaric house, nor did I care. Amon stayed here for a week, then left. Before he left, we added each other on WeChat. Knowing this started making a fuss beside me. It's the first time I've seen my brother take the initiative to add a girl's WeChat. If it's someone I like, my brother will definitely like them too. I looked at her with a sour expression and couldn't help but strike back. "Maybe your brother wants to learn about you through me, like whether you're dating someone." Harriet and I laughed and chatted as we walked back to the dorm. Suddenly, we heard people around us saying there's a guy proposing downstairs at the dorm. "Come take a look." Yeah, they've even set up a big stage. As my classmates spoke, I looked up and saw a large stage set up under the girls' dormitory. Harriet, who loved excitement, immediately grabbed my hand and pulled me toward it. As I walked in, I saw a familiar figure from behind. I immediately wanted to turn and leave, but when Alaric standing on the stage saw me, he shouted loudly, "Imelda, stop right there." I pretended not to hear and quickened my pace to leave. Alaric caught up with me in just a few strides, holding a large bouquet of roses. He stood behind me and said, "Imelda, I've come to take you home." I frowned at him. Alaric forcefully shoved the flowers into my arms. Then he immediately pulled out a box and knelt on one knee. "Imelda, marry me." Without waiting for my answer, he grabbed my hand, wanted to put the ring on me. I quickly took a few steps back. "Alaric, have you taken the wrong medicine?" Alaric's hand froze midair. Then he gave a bitter smile. "Imelda, I know I hurt you before, but I promise it won't happen again. Will you marry me?" The past was all because Cecilia lied to me. That's why I treated you that way. I frowned slightly as I looked at him. My words left no room for kindness. "Alaric, do you really think I'm some kind of trash bin for your garbage? I lost interest in you a long time ago." Alaric's face instantly turned pale. "Imelda, I know you're just angry with me," he said. I impatiently cut him off. "Alaric, there's no chance between us anymore. Stay away from me." After saying that, I walked away without looking back. Alaric stood there, stunned and lost in thought. For a long time, I thought with his prideful nature, after being rejected by me in front of so many people, he would know when to back off. But in the days that followed, he showed up downstairs from my dormitory every day on time. He delivered 3 meals at fixed times and places daily. I frowned, looking at Alaric's face full of affection. Just as I was thinking about how to firmly reject him, Imin appeared from behind. He wrapped one arm around my waist and greeted Alaric in a low voice. "Alaric, you've been pretty free lately, huh? Always pestering my girlfriend." Amin's words made Alaric's face turn completely dark. "How could Imelda possibly be your girlfriend?" Amin sneered. She suddenly realized she had been loving the wrong person all along, then found out I'm so much better than you, and fell in love with me. What's wrong with that? Since Alaric has so much free time, maybe he should pay more attention to the development of the Al group. Just as Alaric was about to say something, his phone suddenly rang. After hanging up, he left without looking back. I smiled at Amon. I hadn't realized before how sharp he was. After that day, Alaric never appeared in front of me again. On the day of my graduation ceremony, Amon officially confessed his feelings to me. "With me, you could do anything you want," he said. I said yes. I knew I deserve a better future and a better person.